Robert McNamara was the Secretary of Defense under Kennedy and Johnson, and he was a very polarizing character in politics because he spoke his mind, and he didn't really care who got upset. He also was the first non-Ford person to be the CEO of Ford before he became the Secretary of Defense. And in his 80s, he did a documentary movie called The Fog of War. And it's a brilliant, brilliant movie, and one that I suggest you go get on Netflix or Redbox, or I guess you can't get it on Redbox because they're only the most recent releases. But basically, it was a review of his life and what he believed, and he had 10 points to make. And his final point was, I think, the most brilliant one. And through this person's extraordinary life, I think went to Yale, really a leader of this country. His 10th point in this movie, The Fog of War, was, when you get to the end, you'll find yourself at the beginning, but with more clarity than ever before. And his point was that you almost have to go through a section of your life or a part of your life and create all this complexity and complication. And then when you get to the end of that, whether that's the end of the week or the end of the month or the end of the year or the end of your lifetime, you're going to find out that really the answers were really clear, but you had to complicate things to figure out that clarity was the answer. And I think about that film a lot, and I think about that person a lot, and what my clients want to have happen to their financial life. They want to accelerate their money. And what you may be wanting in your life is, what I assume, is to accelerate your net worth so you can acquire the choice to not have to work, so you can be out from under the obligation of others. And so we go back to that idea, or I go back to that idea of clarity. And my thought for the week with 2 price charts for you is, the direction of the price is the most important piece of information you have to know about if you want your investments to grow. And right now, today, the U.S. stock market, measured by the S&P 500, it is going up. It is making new lifetime highs after new lifetime highs. There is strength behind it. You don't have to believe in it. It's actually happening. Even though it's probably going up because of the trillions of dollars, or the about $100 billion a month of money printing. And Bernanke's about to hand the baton over to Yellen, who's even more printing crazy. She wants to print even more money. So there are some who believe that Yellen will, in fact, not only not stop the printing press, but actually increase it. But the point is, the price chart of the S&P is going up. And so much information, in fact, I think all the information you really need is in a price chart, because it cuts out all of that just useless information, all the noise. And you're just left with the most important piece of information, which is, what direction is your money growing? What direction is Microsoft growing? And I mean from a price chart. So I want to talk to you about what I consider one of the most important price charts in the world, and some consider it perhaps maybe the most important price chart in the world. And I think that would be an easy argument to make. And the price chart I'm talking about is the 10-year bond. And you've heard me say here that I believe super, super low interest rates ended back in July of 2012. And then the 10-year almost hit 3%. In fact, it was about 13 basis points away from hitting 10%. And I think Bernanke saw that and said, I don't think this country, with its GDP and its entitlements and the amount of people going from unemployment to disabled, can handle a 3% print on the 10-year Treasury. So he came out and said, you know what? Even though I told you for the last 3 months I'm going to cut back the money printing, I'm not going to do that. And I talked in the last month or so about how the 10-year fell, and then it had this kind of bottoming process here. And I said, wow, what if the bond market doesn't listen to Bernanke? And look at this bottoming process. It's moving up. And then over the last about 7 trading days, it basically broke, it broke below this and it broke down. Now, this is significant. This is really significant for anyone you know in your life who has any sort of interest rate sensitive investments, which most likely are bonds first. Second would probably be utilities. Third would be high dividend yielding stocks. But when this broke down, basically the bond market said, we're going to give the US government more time to print more money because we're not going to break above 3%. And now I think the 3% number is really the clear line that at least these, economic, these economists that aren't based on business, but they're, they come from the academic world. They've never had to make a payroll. They're academic economists. I believe what they see is this country cannot handle a 3% yield. And in fact, right now, the 10-year bond market is going along with that. And that's significant. So anyone you know who has any sort of interest-sensitive investments, this is a time for them to either get a position. I'm going to show one more price chart, municipal bonds. If they got out of a position, this is a time to get back into a position. And this is a time for them to start to think about, because they have a little bit more breathing room. Because I think bonds from a price point of view are going to go up. And let me just show you what I mean by that. Right here, the second price chart is the municipal bond market, generally speaking, in the U.S. It's actually an ETF called MUB. And I have a red line here where it had a double bottom. And double bottoms are powerful, and triple bottoms are even more powerful. But the municipal bond market bottomed off this with the price falling from about 114 down to about 100. And so that's almost a 14% drop in something that's not supposed to have a 14% drop over a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, let alone 7 months. But as you can see, this bottom twice here bounced up, pulled back about 50% and broke above that. So there's kind of a reprieve right now for people who have interest-sensitive investments. And this is a time for them probably over the next maybe 6 months. It feels like the next major battle for the stock market will be maybe February, March, when debt ceiling type of conversations start up again. But for right now, people who are in bonds, this is a time for them that can actually start to allow them to get out of them probably over the next 3 to 6 months. And that's the biggest thing I wanted to leave with you today. And that's because the price chart, the simplest thing we can look at, and when I say simple, I mean powerful, is telling us, hey, there's a little bit more time to get out of these positions. And the stock market's probably going to go up a little bit longer. And we don't really care how much longer because we're just going to follow the price of it. So that's what I wanted to share with you. I noticed this last week, but I wanted to share something else with you about just comparing price charts and direction. And sometimes it's so obvious to see that, in fact, it's hard to see because it's just all around you. I did a webinar this week, and one of my past clients had called me on the same day. And he was a client of mine 10 years ago. He's still in my world. And when I met him, he described himself as the working rich. Though he said, RC, I make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I have a nice life. I have a nice car. I have a nice house. And from the outside world, it looks like everything is set. But I don't see a time that I can ever stop working because my lifestyle, my overhead, my expenses, they're accelerating as fast as my income is. And I feel like I'm the working rich. In fact, I am the working rich. But I can't tell anyone because no one would believe that I can't have a point in the future where I can stop working. And using this person's identification, I've been working with people who are in this situation for years, people who are the breadwinners of their families, who have done everything right, but have not been able to really escape or get that escape velocity and really accelerate their wealth. And if that sounds like I've just described you, like you're the breadwinner, you're the person who's saying, how is this possible when I make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that I don't feel like I'm getting ahead, that I don't feel like I'm getting out from under the obligations of others? And if that's you, and you're serious about accelerating your net worth and really getting that experience of knowing that you're getting freer with more choices, I'd like to give you some of my guidance for free. because this is actually how I get new clients. And if you see yourself as that and you are serious about making some shifts, then the next step is really simple. You just reach out to Patty at Fearless Wealth. Patty's my assistant, Patty, and just let her know, hey, I think RC described me, and I want to see what this is all about and see if I qualify. I want you guys to have a great weekend. Notice what's going on with bonds. Bonds will not go back to their July 2013 low, 2012 low of last year, but we have ourselves a little 3, 6, maybe 9-month window where we can start to move out of some of these bonds into other investments that are more able to adapt to what's going to be coming the next few years. And yes, gold is absolutely one of those things that you want to be in. It took a huge hit this year. I think this is the big hit that it's going to take through its 18-year cycle. I think we're going to look back and say we survived the 2013 gold correction. And from here out, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, gold's going to be the thing when you look back that has helped your future and that you survived it. And in fact, it's made your future stronger and safer with more choices. You guys take care, and I'll speak to you next week.